thank you for your time, and hello. My name's Ian Pye, and first of all I'd like to start off with some thank yous. I'd like to thank the Harold Cowburn Trust. Now, Harold was a keen supporter of the Nuffield and sadly passed away before I could finish my scholarship. But as a fellow Lancastrian, I hope I can do him proud. And I'd also like to thank the Nuffield Farming Scholarship for nothing more complicated than thanking them for actually giving me the time to look at this dairy industry. And not the day-to-day management, but the management of the long-term industry and the bigger picture. Now, at home, I have a dairy farm, and then we've tried to manage risk on that dairy farm ourselves by diversifying. So we've got ice cream, we've got an open farm, we've got a visitor attraction that has over 50 school visits a year. And then this year has also been a very busy year for me as I have bought another farm. I've extended the farm shop. I've got married, and I've got a child on the way. Some of those jobs take less time than the others, but I'll let you fill in which one's which, really. So the why. Now, I'm involved with several boards, and one of the boards that I'm involved with, or was involved with, was the NFU. And I remember a little memo coming through when we were sat in one board meeting about the European Union wanting to look at risk management in the dairy sector, and everybody looked around at each other, and there was a bit of an awkward pause for a few minutes, and nobody said anything. And then we moved on to the next topic, which was probably, I think, moaning about the wet weather or something. I can't remember what it was at the time. So from that, I thought, well, perhaps there's something in that I can manage externalities that are normally beyond my control, and I can perhaps bring something back to the dairy industry. So at that point, I set off, and I looked at cow management and hedge fund management. Now, before I started all this, cows managing hedges, I thought that was it, to be honest. And I've actually learned that it's about risk management and it's about managing price volatility. Now, lesson 101 on my journey was using the markets, because we use the stock exchange to do this, manage this volatility. And I thought, well, it must be easy because stockbrokers make lots of money, bankers make lots of money. But lesson 101 for me was that for farmers to use this tool isn't about making money, it's about not losing money, which is something completely different. So it's basically what it is on this screen. Risk management for dairying. It's using financial tools to provide long-term business stability. Sustainability in business. Now, we've listened about land stability this morning. What about business stability? So I set off like Dick Whittington to Europe and called in on UCOLA, who are they represent the manufacturing bodies in the dairy industry in Europe, and had a good conversation with them about risk management and the tools that should be used. And they came up with this list, which is that for a manufacturer, instability in the dairy sector brings all these problems: loss of skills, lack of innovation, lack of R&D, lack of confidence. And I thought, well, this is what we have as farmers. We have this exact same list, the same list as manufacturers. So in that sentence there, in that slide there, we've got the farmer and the manufacturer, the entire supply chain, and we've got the same problems. So I thought, right, I'll take myself off to see some MEPs, and MEPs aren't stupid, also I thought, and they could see that there's storm clouds brewing over the European dairy sector. They know that Europe's in a recession, so we can't afford a lot of expensive products. As you watched the news yesterday and heard Peter Kendall, the budgets are changing in Europe, so we haven't got infinite amounts of money to go at. And then plus, there is the perfect storm that post 2015, it's looking more than likely that quotas will go. So we've got this perfect storm brewing, and I met with these MEPs, and to be fair to the MEPs, they're busy managing the problems of today, tomorrow, and yesterday. And as I left one of the meetings, one of the MEP's advisors said, to sum up what power an MEP has at this moment in time in the dairy sector is that they're all on a bus heading towards a cliff, but they've all to decide what radio station to listen to, and they can't decide who's steering it. So I thought, well, it's very honest, very honest. So now I went around the EU farming unions, or the European farming unions and was met with a polite way of hostility, to be honest. Why do we need risk management? Some farming unions told me that the farmers were completely happy. Some told me that there wasn't a problem in the chain. Some told me that they might look at it if farmers came to them and asked for it. But there wasn't really a lot of love for me there, which, you know, I can understand it. I'm from Lancashire. So I looked at that, and then on top of that, I went and talked to some European dairy bodies that represent farmers, the dairy industry as a whole. I think in one meeting I was frog marched to the door. Another meeting, I was told, it's all very interesting, and if we find anything out about it, we'll contact you. So I came back from Europe, and I was very despondent, and I actually thought about joining UKIP or something like that, to be honest. But I thought, right, I've perhaps gone about this the wrong way. I should perhaps just look at some cows, because I feel happy with cows. So I'll go and look at cows instead. Look at what farmers are doing. So I went and looked at what farmers are doing about expanding. I went to Holland and looked at many units like this, which are basically cows in greenhouses, high welfare units, possibly some of the happiest cows I've ever seen. But these farmers are borrowing a tremendous amount of money. Now, obviously, they've legislation and working conditions and everything else to comply with that's only going to increase in Europe in the future. But they've borrowed this money, and if the dairy market crashes, then they're in a lot of trouble, So I went off to Ireland. An expansion in Ireland is happening, as we've heard today and yesterday. And thank you to the Nuffield scholars from Ireland, both north and south, who were very polite in putting up with me for a week or two. But from that, I learned that Europe has the worst kept secret, which is that post-2015, everybody wants to expand, but everybody thinks that nobody else is doing it. So after 2015, we're probably going to have a lot of milk around. And somebody said 1% excess in production equals a 14% change in market price, which is a worry because there's more than 1% excess out there. So I thought, well, we're all right in the UK because we've got a tool that we can use to stop us getting poor milk prices. Yeah, we can go and protest. So we could go and protest outside the Houses of Parliament and tell our MEPs if we're not happy. MPs, sorry. We can go and protest outside our dairy buyer if we're not happy. And if we've got the figure for it, we can go and protest outside a supermarket. Apologies to anybody if that's your wife or girlfriend or mistress at the front, but you're a lucky bugger. But all this is a tool. This protesting is a tool, and it gets blunter the more times we use it. So it's not really an effective tool. And I thought there's got to be a better way of doing this. And if you can tear your eyes and look up, we've got #SOSDairy at the top, which was probably the motto for this summer with the dairy protests. So I took to Twitter. Now that is a tool, and I hopefully used it well. And I'm going to claim a Nuffield first here because I set up my trips around America using Twitter and just direct messaging. And it was like a guided missile because I could watch conversations going on, and then as they evolved to a point where I thought it was interesting to me, I just dived in with a direct message. And I set up lots of meetings throughout America. It was very interesting, didn't waste much time. And I come across this guy called Carl Babler, who's a principal, basically is the owner, of a agricultural commodities brokerage firm. Now, if anybody's met this guy, you will understand my next sentence, that he must drink 15 litres of coffee in a morning, because he is wired. He is off the radar. But he was good, and he told me something that I've never heard before, never heard from somebody's lips regarding the dairy industry, that making money, that's something completely different, but losing money in the dairy industry, that's the farmer's choice. That's up to you. It's in your own hands, losing money. And I thought, what a breath of fresh air that is. And then he showed me this graph here, which is the American free market for dairy products. Now, you can ignore the start, but he's basically saying that there's a peak and a trough every 3 years. Now, I've happily called this the heifer cycle. Now, pig farmers in the room might know it as the pig cycle, but I'm going to call it the heifer cycle because heifers are nicer than pigs. So, sorry, in my opinion. And so we went from there, and he was saying basically there's a trough every 3 years. And then I went to another brokerage firm and met a lady called Dallas Sipes. Now, this was the downfall of Twitter for me, because with a name like Dallas, I didn't know whether it was a boy or a girl. I thought it was a boy. Unfortunately, when I got there, it was a girl. So it was a bit of a hashtag awkward moment, I think we call it. But anyway, from that, she told me that in the last trough, any producer who wasn't using risk management tools, any dairy producer wasn't using risk management tools, collectively they lost $14 billion. Now, a rough calculation is about £8 billion, and the UK dairy industry as a whole, from cows to milk on the shelf, is worth about £8 billion. So that was a worry. And then she talked me through the history of the future, which was that there's a chocolate bar company out there at the start, and they wondered they could trade a future for every product on the market apart from milk. And that was holding up their industry because the menu price kept having to change. And then I visited a dairy co-op, and they actually actively encouraged their producers to use risk management tools. And they brokerage it for them on their behalf and make some money on the side. And they do that because they realise that they want stability in the whole chain. So it works for both the manufacturer and the farmer. So from there I was introduced to the vanilla hedge by another company, which is basically car insurance, but for your business. You establish what level of risk your business is at, which is, have you paid a sister out recently? Do you own a lot of tractors and not a lot of cows, or whatever it is? And they purchase a sale price to suit your business. As he told me, it's minimum price insurance for dummies. And I was a dummy, and he told me that, so I believed him. So then we went on to see it in action. Now, this was amazing to me, this farm here. A typical, well, not typical actually, far from typical, dairy farm in America. And this was his only building, and it had his milking parlour in it. And he realised that to make money, because he was first generation, he'd only been farming for 5 years, and he had a lot of borrowed money, he was going to have to use a New Zealand system. And Americans were flocking to see him because they couldn't understand that cows were grazing grass in this way. This seemed crazy. But they understood that they had a lot of borrowings, and if this milk trough came, they were going to be out of business. So they invested in a risk management tool. So what does this all mean to me? Well, remember this graph? Well, this is what's happening in Europe now. So there's going to be a trough coming every 3 years. We're getting into that pattern, which is a worry for me. For people in the room that don't know about milk price seasonality, this is milk price seasonality. If you're using a futures tool, that's the price you get. So if you could meet somewhere in the middle, I'd be very happy. It'd be sustainability for my business. And EU, from what we gathered from meeting with you, Collet, manufacturers want to be at the table. The exchange infrastructure is already there and in place, but not being used. But we as farmers aren't there. We're waiting for the trough. And is that a trough we're going to drown in, or is that a trough we're going to feast at? Now, just to quickly wrap up, this guy here is wanting, he doesn't talk farmer, well, he doesn't understand farmers, but he's trying to get this market going in the UK. And he's worried, he actually says I'm his pimp, because I'm pimping him out to the NFU and milk buyers. Anybody who wants to talk to him and get this thing going, talk to me and I'll put you in contact with this man. So in summary, volatility will come. Anybody who's not using these tools putting the business at risk. And all I can say at the end of that is thank you for your time.